I'm sharing this because it's part of our journey, and we said we would share that with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We said that we would also share the things we did wrong so that you won't make the same mistakes. So hopefully the takeaways from this video will help you have a chance in doing something stupid like I did.
Hello, Miss Sassy. Can you say hi?
The accident happened on October 4th. I'm recording this on October 20th, and it's still difficult. I've been working about 1 day a week over at Camas Gravel, which is fairly close to where we live. When I left that morning, I went down the lane and our puppy Sassy followed me. So I backed up and Rob came out and got her. And I left down the lane again, and our old dog, Ivy, followed me. Well, Ivy was in front of the car. I could see her, and I wasn't worried about that. So I was just using my left rear view mirror to back up the lane because I knew that there wasn't anything. If I stayed to the left, I was going to not run into anything. So I thought. What I didn't know was that Sassy and Rob had come down and were standing beside the razor in front of the shop. If I would have just looked in one of my mirrors once, I would have seen them. I heard Sassy yelp, so I slammed on the brakes, and then I heard a thud. I jumped out of the Suburban and ran back, and Rob was lying on his side behind the razor, breathing very, very heavily. I had lost my phone on our trip to Oregon, but I had remembered seeing Rob's phone lying on the table. And so I ran the 30 yards up to the fifth wheel, grabbed the phone, and dialed 911 and ran back down to Rob. From daughter Amy having a skull fracture, I remembered that the EMTs had not let her leave us. I pleaded and yelled and talked to Rob and kept telling him that the ambulance was on the way and making him open his eyes if he could and not leave us. Finally, I heard the ambulance, and I asked Rob if he could hear it, and he said yes. And then the ambulance went past our driveway, and I was, no, please come back. Well, they did, of course. So they got him in the ambulance, and he started going into shock, which was my goal, was to at least not have him go into shock until he got in the ambulance. They loaded him up and took him to the shed at Weippe, and about 5 minutes later, Life Flight arrived.
We've been there before. It's been a while since I've been here, guys. Yeah. Okay, I see your ambulance. I got you now. We'll be down in about 1 minute.
This is takeaway number 1. If you don't have Life Flight, please get Life Flight. You never think you're going to need it, or you hope you're never going to need it. It's the cheapest insurance you can get. It costs us $69 a year currently. And when you see your loved one flying off through the air, you have a million things on your mind, and the last thing you want to worry about is a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 trip in a helicopter. Rob says his only regret is he doesn't remember the trip to St. Joe's in Lewiston, was where they took him.
That's right.
Yep, that's right.
They brought me back home, and I had called friends Ed and Molly to see if they would come and pick up our dogs. When I got back, they had Ivy on a leash, but we couldn't find Sassy. We called and called and called, and she wouldn't come, or couldn't come. The workers were here. We were supposed to have a shop floor started, and they were here to do that. I finally got around and headed to Lewiston. They had told me that Rob's vital signs were good. When I got to Lewiston, they ushered me in where Rob was. The doctor came in and said they'd done a CT scan from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, and that he was fine. I think Rob would have debated that issue, but he was fine. 3 little tiny bumps to go over, and I was going over them about 5 miles an hour, and Rob told me I had to slow down. And I thought, oh dear, this could be a long trip home. We headed upriver, and things went fine, and then we headed up Greer Grade. And of course, if you've ever been up Greer Grade, you know that when the corners say 15 miles an hour, we better be going 15 miles an hour, maybe even 10, depending on the road conditions. So we got about halfway up the grade, and he said he felt like he was going to get sick. But I think it was mostly that he was so bunged up that I think it was mostly the seat belts were making his body hurt. Pulled over by the side of the road for a few minutes, and then he said he could go on. So we got home in the afternoon, and our friend Molly was back over there looking for Sassy. We got Rob up the steps and into the fifth wheel, and he was okay. So Molly and I started looking for Sassy while we heard a whimpering under the porch extension that we have on the fifth wheel. So we dug out the step, and she used to go under there as a puppy, but she hadn't been able to get under there as a big dog, but we found her under there. So we dug out dirt and talked her into coming out. She loves to ride, so I pulled the Suburban down there and got Molly's dog Red in there, and then we got Sassy to come out and get in the car and took her for a ride. When I came back, she didn't want to get out, so I just left her there. It was pretty comfy. I came back in to check on Rob, and he was doing okay, so I went back out to check on Sassy, and she wasn't in the Suburban. But she had thrown up all of her food, and I couldn't find her anywhere, so I just worried about her. Of course, I had plenty to worry about with Rob. He was sore had 8 staples in the top of his head, and his legs were all bruised, and we really don't know what happened, and he can't remember anything about that day. We don't know why he was there, or why he didn't move, or any of that. So anyway, I was concerned about him, and Sassy just wasn't around. So, needless to say, I didn't get very much sleep that night, and I sat up in the chair, so if Rob needed anything. About midnight, Rob wanted some ice on his legs, so I headed out to the barn where the freezers are to get some ice, and Sassy was lying beside the fifth wheel. So I had opened the door to her crate, which is on the front porch, in case she wanted to go in there. I kept checking her eyes, and her eyes kept telling me that, yes, I'm hurt. I identified her and Rob as both, neither one of them wanted to move because everything hurt so bad. But her eyes kept saying, I'm okay. So the next morning I went out to her crate, and she was in it. She had moved in there. And I hadn't gone out to check on her because I was afraid if I opened the door that it would wake Rob up. They didn't give him any other painkillers than what they'd given him in the hospital. So that day, Sassy moved around like she was sore, but her eyes were okay. This is Tuesday now, Tuesday night. She's drinking a lot of water, just tons of water, which I think is good because she's not eating. I can't get her to eat anything. Finally, Tuesday night, she ate a little bit, and I thought I'd hoped that maybe we were turning a corner. Wednesday morning, when I went out to check on Sassy, she was standing in the porch, and her head was hanging. I'd noticed a little bit in the afternoon before that she was having difficulty breathing, it seemed to me. So I called our local vet that we go to, and they agreed to see her that morning. Our friend Jean came to sit with Rob that morning. What happens now, I'm not going to fault our vet. He thought he was doing the right thing. He took her temperature, something to do with the blood. Anyway, he decided that she had pneumonia. So he gave her a shot and a pill, and sent me home with her. When I got home, she headed to the water like she had been, but she couldn't keep the water down. All of the water that she drank came back up. So I called back down to the vets. We live above a small town of about 3,000, and both of our vets are only working half-time. So my vet was gone by the time I called back down, and the lady on the phone said, well, try ice chips then. I called Rustabakey's in Clarkston, and they said that they would see her. So I called our friend Molly, and she came to stay with Rob, and I got in the car with Sassy and left. I forgot to mention that not only could Sassy not hold her water down, but she was walking around like a drunken sailor, and she just couldn't lie still, which she had been doing just fine. So anyway, we left. I checked at the top of the griggrade, and she was breathing. I checked at the bottom of the griggrade, and she was breathing. I didn't have to check anymore because Sassy was whimpering and moaning. We finally got to Lewiston, and I took the bypass to the Red Roof Bridge. She was still alive when I went across the bridge. But 2 blocks later, when I pulled into Restovicki's, she crossed the Rainbow Bridge. We feel it was the shot that was given to her, and she had a reaction to it. I'm certainly not blaming our vet. He was trying to help her, and she wouldn't have been in that position if it wouldn't have been for me. But we are blessed. We called Sassy our angel puppy, because if I wouldn't have heard her yip and slammed on the brakes, I might have hurt Rob a whole lot more.